Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Today is March 20th and it is known around the world as the International Day of Happiness. It's a day of celebration that was started by the United Nations in 2011. The goal is to counter economic growth with an eye to the health and well-being of the individuals in that economy. One group that's based in Montpelier wants people across the country to start thinking seriously about happiness and well-being. Rebecca Gollin and video editor Marco Ayala show us.
There's a movement underway that aims to help people be happier.
GNHUSA has been able to grow.
Ginny Sassaman is the president of Gross National Happiness USA. The group is based in Montpelier. Their mission is to increase personal happiness and collective well-being by changing how we measure progress and success.
One of the things that I like to help people consider is how do we personally shift from living sort of a gross national product, a gross domestic product, growth economy, personal life. How can we shift to live more in harmony, more holistic? So both our personal happiness, but our personal happiness as it's connected with the community and the broader collective.
It's a principle that was started in Bhutan and continues to be a guiding ideology of the government there. The basic idea is that the collective health and happiness of a nation is just as important as its economic well-being. That's traditionally measured with indicators such as median income, poverty rates, and labor force participation.
My understanding has been that the way we've developed ourselves, our economy here, especially in the United States, it feels like it's somewhat transitioned so that we're more in service to the economy than the economy being in service to us. We only get that happiness if we're economically productive. That's the shift that I think Gross National Happiness really helps us look at that and say it's not just about what we produce, because if we're only focused on that, it's very limiting. It doesn't take into consideration externalities that we create, pollution, social issues that we create, wealth inequality, etc. And Gross National Happiness provides a much broader lens to be able to look at all those things, at least from a economic and an overall society level on how we're doing.
Brian Kaminer advises people on impact investing, which means that he helps them align their money and their values.
What I've come to know, believe, and try to speak to other people about is that there are limits to growth, and that the economy really should be in service to us, should be in service to our broader quality of life, our happiness.
The group hopes to engage the public at large, both nationally and right here in Vermont.
So one of the things that can happen at the local level is helping to educate people about GNH and about how to incorporate GNH in your own life. But there's also policy things that can happen. Municipalities could adopt the GNH framework for decision making. So for example, instead of just voting on something like this is good for jobs, but take a look, okay, so it's good for jobs, but is it good for the environment? Is it good for our community vitality? Is it good for our mental health? Is it good for our physical health?
So for me, GNH, having been to Bhutan for 5 or 6 times, is really about essence. And as we say, we live our astrology. We live and we share, we teach what we most need to learn.
On this night, the group welcomed an ambassador for Gross National Happiness to Montpelier for a talk.
I went to Bhutan for the first time with my wife 7 years ago now, 6-7 years ago. And I've now returned 5 or 6 times. And on the second trip, I got a great opportunity to do some photography and painting. It started to snowball, exhibitions, and eventually I was asked to do a painting of the Queen Mother, and then I ended up painting the King, and the Prime Minister then invited me to come back and present the pictures, and after attending a number of Gross National Happiness conferences as well, I was asked to become, a cultural ambassador for Gross National Happiness by the Prime Minister and by Dr. Samdhu Chetri, who was running the Gross National Happiness Centre in Bhutan at the time.
Putting oneself in the shoes.
George Lewis is an artist, philosopher, and healer who gives talks around the world, sharing the spiritual side of the movement.
perhaps even more.
Gross national happiness is a conduit. It's a conduit to a higher level of consciousness. It's a system which measures our relationships. It measures our environment. It's respective of our environment. So gross national happiness for me is a wonderful organisation to work with, which celebrates humanity writ large, as opposed to how much I can trade with you and how much profit I can make, without really taking in the other aspects of life.
Recently, the group teamed up with several partners, including the Center for Rural Studies at the University of Vermont, to conduct a survey of Vermonters' happiness and well-being. It was a follow-up to an initial survey in 2013.
Basically, the questions ask respondents their overall well-being on a variety of characteristics related to community well-being, environmental health and well-being, trust in governance, trust in neighbors and in local businesses, for example.
The data is then combined into a total number for an overall score of Vermonters' well-being.
So in 2013, we conducted the study and we were able to compare our results in the state of Vermont to some national level results on overall happiness and well-being. And we found that indeed Vermonters tended to be a little bit happier than people across the country, or U.S. citizens in general. And in 2017, we found that Vermonters' self-perceived well-being had decreased slightly, if at all. So we're able to begin tracking these data over time and using those data points to see if Vermonters are happier, getting happier, or are sort of experiencing a decline in happiness overall.
Conducting a survey of happiness can be tricky because it's so subjective.
Asking someone how they felt last week is a lot different than knowing what their median income was last year, and we recognize that. But again, if we can ask people how they felt last week enough times and over time, we can develop a more rich understanding.
The goal is that over time, the results of these surveys will help researchers and policymakers know more about what's affecting the people and communities they serve.
We do hope that in the future we would be able to use indicators like these alternative well-being indicators to really better understand the conditions that are going on in communities and better understand some of the factors that are beyond economic factors or more traditional factors. Understand what's really impacting people's lives in a more complete, rich picture.
Gross national happiness, in a way, is a conduit towards the new paradigm. It doesn't stop with gross national happiness because it's not national anyway, it's global.
The gross national happiness provides a vehicle for us to really broaden the discussion, and it's a wonderful engagement point, and it does a great job of holding space in which people can begin to think differently on what it means to be happy.
Helping people think differently about what it means to be happy, and providing a new framework for personal and community health and well-being in Vermont and beyond. It's a new way to measure happiness and hopefully increase it for everyone. In Montpelier, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.